Chapter 21 Bed of Lies. Athena's POV. Nothing good ever lasts long. I should have known that that saying was true, but here I was thinking that maybe, when it's my turn, there'll be an exception. In my dreams, I had woken up very early to make Regan's favorite meal, which so happens to be lemon pie. I was a terrible cook, but things were going so well between us that I wanted to make him happy and put a smile on his face. I made two botched attempts before I finally got the hang of it, and for the third time, it came out looking so good that my mouth watered for a taste. I showered and changed into another cloth since the former was decorated with different ingredients. Wrapping up the pie in foil paper, I carried the still warm food, making my way to Regan's side of the house. He stayed in the east wing. I bypassed his study, but raised voices emerging from the crack in the door stopped me in my tracks. They must be in there. The voices got louder, seeming as if an argument was ensuing. I bit my lip, not sure of what to do. When I heard my name, my ears perked up and I got curious. I leaned in and pressed my ear flat to the door. I think this is dangerous. I picked out Earl's voice. Of course, it's not. Athena doesn't suspect a thing. Regan spoke loud enough for me to make out. Suspect what? Regan, Athena's smart. She figure it out in no one. After all, there's only so long that you can play her, or reason. Last time I checked, my private life is none of your business. Regan grumbled. It is my business if you're just going to waste away everything we've worked so hard for. Everything I've worked so hard for, Earl. You seem to forget your place, Regan thundered. Earl seemed to back off because his tone was now calmer. All I'm just saying is that you need to either back off or come clean to Athena. Why? Regan scoffed. Everything's going fine. Soon we'll get mated, have sex, and she get pregnant. Then I can tell her. After all, if she finds out that it was all a ploy to get her, she most likely bite my balls off. Regan chuckled. Blood rushed into my ears, and my entire world spun on its axis. No, 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 no. I refused to believe what I heard, but it was sadly making sense to me. Now I understood the hot and cold attitude, why he acted like he loved. Also, I could bear his pups. How dare he? How dare he? After all I told him, foolishly bearing my heart open to him. And he does this? I don't know when the tray clattered to the ground, nor did I know when the door opened and Regan's stricken face looked at me in shock. Athena, no wait. Listen to me, it's not what you think. Is it true? I was forced out. Is everything true? My voice wavered. Regan didn't say anything, but even that was answer enough. Fuck me. My breath came out of my pants because I was struggling to keep my emotions under a tight lid. Get away from me, I screamed when he tried to reach for me. Well played, Regan. Fuck you, fuck you. I ran away from them, tears falling down my face. Why did this always keep on happening to me? Who the fuck did I offend? Asterisk, 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 asterisk. I can't take this anymore, I decided. I sat up on my bed after looking at the ceiling for long hours so that I could point out each crack with my eyes closed. I looked towards the direction of my closet and a crazy thought seized me. I toyed with the idea for a while before I decided to act on it. Leaping to my feet, I walked over to the bathroom, removing all my toiletries and personal effects, and dumping them into an overnight bag. I removed my clothes, the ones I brought with me, not the ones Regan bought. They were beautiful, but they were now tainted by him, dumping them into the bag. I did the same with my shoes. The bag weighed a lot more than I expected, but I easily lifted it onto my shoulder. Taking one last look at the room I'd come to love, I debated leaving one last time. Regan was out of town, so this would be the only time I had to do this. I walked downstairs, tugging my baseball cap so it said low on my face. Seeing Earl first, I walked up to him. I need you to drive me somewhere, I announced. Earl's eyes trailed over to the bag I didn't bother hiding. Athena, you can't leave. I expected he would say that. I moved even closer, bringing out the gun and positioning it in his stomach. It was close enough that he could feel it and know that even if he tried to disarm me, the close range would be fatal. Athena. His eyes widened and fear crept in, but I wasn't moved. Move now, I ordered, digging the barrel against his side even harder. All right, all right. He grabbed his keys from the counter, bending to help me pick up the bag. The clouds were dark, and a cold breeze blew past. You know it's gonna rain, right? Earl looked at me as he kicked up the engine. If it rains, then you drive through the storm? I flashed him a cruel smile, motioning for him to drive. With my gun still trained on Earl, I shot off a text to someone who I hoped could help me out of my predicament because no way in hell was I staying here. Just like Earl predicted, the rain started to fall heavily, nearly blinding the windscreen, but Earl calmly navigated his way through. I gave him the GPS, watching his reaction. Earl's jaw only ticked, but he wisely didn't say anything. We got to the city, and it was just as beautiful as he described it. We asked for directions and were taken to his house. The moment the car stopped in the driveway, the door ended with a sob. I ran out of the car into the one person who genuinely cared for me. Sirel. Hey, it's okay. He soothed, trying to shield me with his body under the rain. His care even made me cry harder, reminiscing on what I never had. Come on, stop crying and let's go in before you make yourself sick. He gently pushed me in the direction of the house and cocooned in the arms of a friend that truly cares. I went willingly. Chapter 22 Warm Feelings, Athena's POV. You're going to be fine, Sirel comforts her, throwing an Afghan on her feet to keep her warm. After being safely shown into Sirel's home, I dried off and wore new clothes. Sirel insisted that we lounge by the fireplace, blatantly refusing to leave me alone. I grumbled but agreed, secretly loving being taken care of. We sat there watching the flames flicker. Eating cookies, Sirel gently asked what happened, and I burst into tears again before spilling everything. He was sympathetic, acting angry on my behalf. Will I smiled sadly. I feel like I'm being torn into two. Pain comes with loving, Sirel shrugged, looking a bit uncomfortable. Someone wise once told me that. He looked at me and I chuckled weakly. He was right. But if this was what I had to grow through being in love, I'd rather remain distant. I told Sirel as much before changing the conversation. Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? I tried to. But Regan banned me from coming to the house, and you weren't picking up your phone. He broke off a cookie, stuffing it into his mouth. With our last conversation, I figured you had told Regan everything and didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. I allowed the information to sink in, realizing that Regan's deception knew no bounds. Thinking about him was dampening my mood. Sirel noticed and called it a night, showing me to my room. It was a clean room painted in egg white, with its own bathroom and tiny closet. I thanked him and fell to the bed in my outfit, too exhausted mentally and physically to do anything else. I closed my eyes briefly, but the next thing I knew, the harsh rays of the sun were beaming down my face. I groaned, pulling the covers up so I could hide, but I was still feeling it. That must be my cue to stand up. My head and mouth felt like it was filled with cotton, so I drank a lot of mouthwash, showered, and followed my nose to the great smell of breakfast. I was still half asleep as I wandered down the hall, but I heard Sirel talk to someone, the later end of his conversation reaching my ears. I don't care what your reasons are, Regan, but she's shattered by what you did. Hell, you should have seen her last night. She was a mess. A pause. I don't know, man, but you might have lost her entirely. You of all people should know that actions have consequences. He turned just in time to see me walk into the room and quickly ended the call. Reaching for a piece of fruit from the fruit bowl, I asked, "Who was that?" "No one." he replied too quickly, sliding a plate to me. I wanted to argue further, but as I cut out a bit of the fluffy pancakes, every question melted away at the decadent taste. I groaned, my eyes rolling to the back of my head. Holy smokes, where did you learn to cook like this? It's so good, I gushed. Sirel's cheeks warmed. Thank you. We chatted briefly, making small talk as we ate. Once we were done, I offered to clean up, but Sirel wouldn't hear of it. We later settled on a compromise, me assisting him in cleaning. After I went to shower for the second time, I dressed properly since Sirel told me he had a surprise for me. For the first time in a couple of days, I felt my heart jolt to life, excitement thrumming through my veins. I skipped downstairs and out the door only to see Sirel standing outside with a wide grin on his face, dressed in shorts and sandals. Ta-da, he announced excitedly, moving aside so I could see what his body was blocking. 2 big bicycles were there, one with a pink bow on it. I walked slowly, still not getting it. What is this? It's for you. He smiled, then looked to the other one without a bow. Well, this is for me though. Why? Today, we're going to learn how to ride a bike. He was so happy to show me that he dragged my hand. Sirel was a patient teacher, I learned. He would allow me to carve up the courage to try something new, cheering me all the way. He stood behind me as I placed one leg on the pedal, hiking my lower body up so I could place my feet on the other. I was acutely aware of his strong body and scent. It took everything I had to concentrate on his teachings. That's good. You've got it. Now, I want you to place your hand on the handlebar and ride gently. His low tone made his words sound suggestive, sparking ideas in my mind. I pushed them away and obeyed. Think I've got it. I tapped tentatively when the bicycle started to roll along the road, but suddenly I lost control, and the bicycle turned over. Athena, Sirel sounded alarmed. The next minute, I was face down on the ground with the bicycle tires rolling in the air. Sirel was next to me instantly, checking my body for wounds. Are you okay? Holy crap. You could have hit your head, he babbled. I shouldn't have suggested something so dangerous. Next time. I placed a hand over his lips, shutting him up. I'm fine. I think I just have a mild scratch on my leg, but aside from that, I'm peachy. I looked towards the bicycle, a grin curving my lips. I think I'm going to do it again. But with you, of course. Better, he agreed, getting to his knees. Sirel tore off a piece of his shirt, wadding it into a ball so he could dab at the scratch, cleaning away the blood. He looked so serious and concerned. I couldn't help but watch him, noting how his hair tumbled over his face. My pack is having a torch festival. Would you like to come? Sirel asked out of the blue, but the way he rushed his words indicated that he had thought about it a lot. When is it? I relaxed on my hands. In a couple of days. He looked up briefly. I understand if you decide not to come, but I thought it would be rude not to tell you. I was touched that he thought about me. I'd love to. How can I help? Sirel launched into several things that happened during the festival, his face lighting up as he dressed my wound. A warm, fuzzy feeling took root in my heart the longer I watched him. At that moment, I desperately wished I could fall in love with Sirel and be shown what true love is. Chapter 23: The Festival, Athena's POV. It's the day of the festival and I've never been more excited. I did some research on the history of the Torches Festival, and to my surprise, it dates back several decades ago. It started as a way of communication when the torch at the top of the hill was lit, either to inform the people of the death of someone important or a way to warn people of intruders, but it then evolved into a way of bringing the community together to celebrate life, love, and laughter. I offered to volunteer, so I escorted Sirel once or twice, helping them set up. I made new friends who were as carefree and fun as Sirel, and enjoyed watching them good-naturedly rib Sirel. The festival was held in the middle of the town square, which had been cleared out, tables and chairs strategically placed in some corners where food was to be placed. We strung lights around the trees and poles, hanging banners too. For the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to observe how normal pack communities behaved, and I fell in love with their lifestyle, often wishing that this was my life. Sirel and I ended up going late since we had popped in to help with last-minute preparations. I was so eager and excited to see the transformation. We took Sirel's truck even though he looked extra nervous. The party was already in full swing when we got there. Some people were already on their way to get plastered. Sirel was popular, so we had to stop every 2 minutes to greet someone, but I enjoyed it. I danced carefree, shaking my body to the beat while I breathed in the clean, night air. Sirel let me for a while, but we reconvened at the food stand, our heads bent together as we talked about weird outfits that we've seen so far. Sirel commented on a woman that made me laugh so loud that I snorted out food through my nose. Just as I turned around to grab a tissue paper on the table, I caught sight of something from the corner of my eyes. Or someone. I narrowed my eyes, searching out the shadow I had just seen. I saw the person again, noting the red shirt tapered to fit broad shoulders. The build was familiar though, I just couldn't place it. I distantly heard Sirel ask me something, but I was focused on who that was. No, it can't be. But it was. The crooked grin, distinct silver hair, narrow hips, and tight butt. Was all Regan. Fuck, what is he doing here? I whirled around to face Sirel, who had this guilty look on his face when he noticed what I saw too. Seeing Regan was a shock as it reminded me that he existed, not a figment of my imagination. I thought I was over him. Well, not over him anyway, but I was getting there. Seeing him just brought everything back. I always knew at the back of my mind that there was a possibility or I might tell him where I was, but it was all coming back to me. The conversation. It was Sirel. I knew it. He said he wanted to talk to you. And you allowed him? I was stumped. I can't not allow him to come here. Athena. He's friends with most people, and it would have just created a host of problems. Sirel looks over to where Regan stands. He just wants to talk. There's no harm in talking. Fine. Then he can talk to you because I'm going within 10 feet of him. I grabbed his popcorn and walked away, intent on enjoying my time at the party. I stopped by the painting segment, fascinated as I watched the artists move their brushes swiftly across the blank canvas, etching their imaginations to life. Amazing, isn't it? Regan spoke next to me, and I froze, wondering how I didn't hear him walk up to me. He's gotta stop that. It's becoming creepy. Focusing on the emerging canvas, I nodded. Beautiful. He didn't miss a beat. Just like you, I sighed, already knowing where this conversation was headed, and I wanted to be done with it quickly so I could enjoy the festival. Come on. I moved away from the artists and the little crowd that had gathered, out of their earshot. What do you want? Don't you think you owe me an apology? When I raised my brows for further explanation, he pressed further. You left without even so much as a goodbye? My mouth dropped open, absolutely blown away by the audacity of this man. Are you serious right now? That was the only thing I could think to say. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. Regan closed his eyes, blowing out a breath. First of all, I want to apologize. I'm sorry for everything I did, but not how I felt about you though. I didn't fake that, I swear. I looked him over, taking my time to gather my thoughts. I'm not gonna lie and say a part of me isn't a bit happy to see you, but I held up a hand to stop him from moving closer, after he excitedly took a step forward. I'm still hurt and recovering. Everything, what you said, what I overheard really hurt me, Regan, and it's not something I can walk over like that. I need time. I glanced at the almost finished art. One I was watching turned out to be of a woman with her mouth open, her heart shattered, but there was a door blocking her scream. I felt like that was meant for me. Broken, wanting to speak out but being held back. I need time, Regan, I say more firmly, touching his hand briefly. With that settled, I moved over to the other side of the festival, keeping a close eye on Regan, making sure he didn't sneak up on me again. It wasn't as fun as I had planned it to be, due to being alert at all times. Chapter 24 Tension. Athena's PAV. Why are you avoiding me? Regan appeared by my side, putting me into a corner. I'm not avoiding you, I'm just staying far away from you, I reply, my face impassive. It's still the same fucking thing. Why are you here, Regan? I was surprised at how cool, calm, and collected I sounded. Meanwhile, I was raging on the inside. I came here for you, he says. That startled a laugh out of me, which Regan did not like. Is something funny? He looked angry. Yes, you. I snicker, covering my mouth. I think it's the audacity that's so funny to me though. The smile wiped off my face. The fact that you think you can just waltz in here, dick swinging, and order me to come back. I'm not ordering you to come back. He banged the table a little too hard, drawing attention. I'm asking, there's a difference. Whatever the fucking difference is, you can take it and shove it up your ass, I yelled, losing my cool at his high-handedness. Who the hell do you think you are? Athena ... double quotes. Don't touch me. My voice was louder than I thought, and now the majority of the pack was looking at us. Regan noticed the same thing. Let's go, he ordered. I didn't move an inch. I'm not going anywhere with you. It's either you walk or I carry you. He looks around again. Do you want everyone to continue watching us shout at each other like barbarians? I hated the fact that we were causing a spectacle, and everyone was watching us. Fine, let's go. I walked, allowing him to lead the way. I made eye contact with Sirel on our way, and communicated to him that I was fine. Regan helped me into his car, and I stubbornly kept silent as the car rumbled to life. Regan swerves and turns. Some minutes later, I identified the street he was on. This is Sirel's house, I pointed out uselessly. I know. I figured we could talk better here. He gets down and rounds the car to help me, but since I don't want him touching me, I quickly jump down, walking towards the front door. I catch the glare he directed my way but ignore him. As soon as the door was closed, I felt suffocated, as if Regan sucked in all the air, so I casually ambled to the window, feigning boredom. You wanted to talk? I waved a hand. Go on, I'm listening. Regan didn't respond. Instead, he was looking around the house. He spotted Sirel's top that I wore to bed last night carelessly thrown over the chair. I just loved how comfy it was, which was why I practically dragged it from Sirel. But since my scent was all over the cloth, it would paint another type of narrative. As if to punctuate my thoughts, Regan walked over to pick up the shirt, inhaling deeply. Why the hell are you wearing his clothes? I instantly got defensive. Who says they're his? And I'm not stupid look is thrown my way. Don't change the subject. I'm not changing anything. I fold my hands. Even if they're him, that's none of your business. Wonder followed by shock flash. Please tell me you're not fucking him. I couldn't resist poking the bear. I just might. Rage clouded his eyes and he stalked towards me. I've never had reason to be afraid of Regan, but in that moment, I was deathly scared. I moved back, but was blocked by the counter. I don't believe you. Regan grabbed my wrist, jerking it up. His grip was so tight and his sharp nails were digging into my skin. I whimpered at first, but when the pain became unbearable, I had to cry out. Regan, let me go. You're hurting me. Not until you tell me the truth. He twisted even harder, and tears spilled from my eyes. I hate you, Regan. I hate you with everything I have. I sobbed loudly, cursing the day I ever met him. Regan came to his senses, realizing what he had done. Horror painted his features, and he looked disgusted when he noticed the red mark on my wrist. Fuck, he shouts, throwing things away. He takes a hand over his hair, making them stick up. I'm doing this all wrong. Athena, baby, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I shrink back away from him, and he gets the hint, staying away. Okay, let me do the talking, and you just listen, he says, trying to reason with me. He breathes out. I know how what you heard sounds, but I swear that this is the truth. My parents died when I was little, and everything I thought I knew about love was taken from me. I grew up pushing my emotions to the side, never dealing with them, and that made me not know how to love properly until you came and changed all that. He slid to the floor, holding his hands in his head. Did I find you a burden at first? Yes. And I admit I hurt you, but it was because I didn't know how to handle how you made me feel. Regan stood up, looking at me with eyes swimming with emotions. These past few weeks have been amazing, and not a single moment of it was pretense for me. I want you by my side, and I want you to teach me how to love. His words seemed heartfelt, but I held back. I don't trust you anymore, Regan, not after everything. You lied and you betrayed me. Knowing where I'm coming from, I don't take those too lightly. But Athens? That's all, Regan. I looked towards the door, mentally drained. You should go. He must have seen something in my expression because he left without debate. I went to my room, hugged my pillow down 3 sleeping pills, and promptly nodded off, wanting to forget all that happened. The next morning came with lots of decision-making and harsh reality. No matter how I might deny it, I do love Regan, but for the sake of my mental health, I can't afford to be strung along and lied to. Making that decision and allowing it to sink in, I was pleasantly surprised when Sirel informed me that I had a guest. I dashed to the door, wondering who it was. No other person than Regan, smiling as if all's right with the world. I had a feeling he was here to grovel for my forgiveness. Too late though. Chapter 25, Turbulence, Athena's POV. I allowed Regan to grovel and beg for a while, and while I said I forgave him just to get him off my back, I never truly did. Carrying the consciousness of what he did gave him the strength to stand strong, especially when he pulled out all the stops, like he did today. He brought me flowers and my favorite chocolate, took me ice skating, and told jokes. The whole 9 yards. I had fun, not going to lie, but I couldn't allow myself to forget so easily. Sirel went out to give us some privacy, which I already told him we didn't need, but Sirel was stubborn like that. I was showering off the day's sweat, feeling sticky in certain places. I used Flowers by Miley Cyrus was blaring through the hidden speakers, and I swayed my body gently to the beat, letting the warm water pour down my body. I didn't hear the silent footsteps, and I didn't hear the shower door open, but when I sensed another presence, I spun around, wielding my shampoo bottle as a weapon. Only it was Regan. Oh my gosh, Regan, what are you doing here? I tried to cover up my exposed bits, feeling naked physically and emotionally with the way he was staring at me. Regan was just standing still, his eyes darker than usual. His entire demeanor had changed, and it was obvious he wasn't the same person I left downstairs. Your scent is everywhere. He sounded so calm, but I caught him flexing his fists. What? Even in Sirel's bedroom? He stopped staring at the floor, raising those eyes to me. Are you fucking him, Athena? And this time don't you dare lie to me. I was getting scared of his erratic behavior, and I shifted backward, trying to breathe sense into him. Regan, I promise that we can talk about this later. You know, when I'm fully dressed. My words flew over his head because he moved even closer. There was this air of darkness and a cloak of menace around him that pushed her to talk. No, okay, I'm not sleeping with him. Sometimes we have movie nights in his room, and that's all. Even if I'm not sleeping with him, that doesn't mean I'll sleep with you. That was the wrong thing to say because Regan snapped. Moving so fast, he slammed her against the bathroom tiles before I could even blink. Liar, I know you're lying. I was genuinely afraid for my life, but I tried to keep calm. Think, Regan, if I was indeed sleeping with Sirel, you would have smelled me on him. I waited with bated breath, hoping he would see reason. It happened like a flash. Instantly, the anger faded and Regan returned to himself. He realized what happened, cursed under his breath, and after we stared at each other for a couple of minutes, he walked out. I couldn't comprehend what happened, but I finished bathing like normal. I got out, only to find no trace of Regan anywhere, so I walked around the house to calm my nerves. When I got to the garden, I saw a portion where someone must have stomped ruthlessly on it, damaging a small part. And that resonated with me so badly that I broke down right there and started to cry. It symbolized my relationship with Regan, how toxic it was, and the result if I continued with him. I would look like that trampled rose both on the inside and out, if I let Regan crush me whenever he pleases. Soon enough, there'll be no strength to rise back up. When Sirel came home, I pretended nothing happened and he cooked me dinner. We talked and gossiped as usual until suddenly I just broke down, tears pouring out of my eyes for no reason. Hey, Athena, what's wrong? Sirel stopped eating immediately. Rushing over to my side, I lied. It's Regan. I sobbed even harder when his name left my lips. We fought after you left. He just came into the shower and started accusing me of sleeping with you. Hiding behind my hands, I wailed. He hit me, Sirel, and it's not the first time either. Whenever we fight and he gets worked up, I'm the victim. Shh, it's okay. Sirel pulled me into his arms. He's gone now. He's been gone for several hours, and he can't hurt you anymore. I hope it stays that way, I cried out, letting Sirel comfort me. It seemed like the fates listened to me that night because, for several days spanning into months, I didn't see nor hear a word from Regan again. I started to let my hair down, go out, have fun, and engage in new activities. I was seeing myself spending the rest of my life here, but of course, I just had to jinx it. I was alone at home, making lunch when the door opened. I didn't bother to check who it was, thinking it must be Sirel. Odd, since he left here like 15 minutes ago. Did you forget your keys? You always do. I turned to give it to him when I screamed, the keys talking from my hands. It was Regan, looking wild and disheveled. Regan, what are you doing here? I asked as calmly as I could while subtly reaching for a kitchen knife. I had no idea what he wanted, but I would be ready if it went south. Regan's eagle eyes picked up on my movements, and he pounced. I ran in the opposite direction, but I was no match for him. Regan scooped me up effortlessly, kicking and screaming before dumping me in the car, activating the child lock. While he went inside to pack my things, I kept screaming, hoping for help when I remembered that his car was reinforced glass and soundproof. I slumped in the seat, tears stinging my lids. Once again, Regan had succeeded in taking my choice away from me. Chapter 26, Homecoming, Athena's POV. I stood all the way home, and thankfully Regan didn't even bother engaging me in a conversation, otherwise I would have chewed his head off. It was still midday when we arrived, and to my surprise there were a couple of women gathered out front, and as soon as they sighted Regan's car, they all jumped up. Did something happen? On getting closer, I realized that they were the women I usually spent time with, and a part of me was touched that they could come out for me. Regan put the car in park, but made no effort to step out. From the corner of my eye, I saw him look at me, but I stubbornly kept looking straight ahead. I'm sorry about what happened that day. He sounded hesitant to talk about what he did. I got angry and out of control. Please forgive me. Forgive you. I finally look at him, and he's unrecognizable. From afar, I didn't realize how bad it had gotten, but up close, it was even worse. His eyes were bloodshot, his beards were unattended and bushy, and his hair. Don't get me started, he looked terrible, but even that won't save him from the tongue lashing he'll receive. You think it's so easy, don't you? Waltz in, waltz out, and come back to apologize. Quite frankly, I'm all out of forgiveness. I don't even know which to forgive you now, because your messes just keep piling up. His brows bunched together. But I said I'm sorry. I hold up my hand, holding him mid-speech, and I'm tired of hearing it. How about you work on avoiding scenarios like this, and there won't be any more apologies? I opened the car door, pasting on a happy smile as the women surrounded me instantly, talking over one another, wanting to know where I'd been. I tell them as much as I can without giving the real gist away. They showed me the welcome back sign and the small gift they made for me, and I grew emotional and slightly guilty that I just abandoned them without thinking twice. The group dispersed into 2s and 3s, and I talked with Eliza. She and I get along more than the others, and I've come to think of her as a friend. She had some pressing concerns, which I managed to put her through to the best of my ability, even though mine was in shambles. An hour later, I excused myself to rest for a bit, excited to go in and revisit my room. The first person I saw was hoping not to see. Earl stood beside the top staircase, positioned in such a way that he hadn't seen me yet. I bit my lip, totally ashamed of my behavior the last time, but since there was no other way to sneak past him, I braved it. "Hey," I greeted Earl, who bowed respectfully. His nice attitude made me feel ashamed of myself. "How are you?" "I'm fine. Glad to have you back, ma'am," he says politely. "Enough with the ma'am shit, please." I waved it away. "You make me feel old," Earl chuckled, looking away. "No more ma'ams then, yeah." I toyed with my drink for a moment, needing liquid courage. "I'm sorry I pointed a gun at you that time. I just need out, however, I could get it." "You don't need to explain that to me, I understand." Earl's kind smile put me at ease. "So you're not mad?" "No. I even admire you for that." What I saw was a woman who desired to be free, not held back by any constraints. His words painted me to be some kind of a brave person, even though I knew that was not who I was. I knocked back another drink to avoid saying anything. "So much for escaping, huh?" I said wryly. Earl said nothing before he looked around to make sure no one was around and lowered his voice. "The truth is, while you were Regan was miserable, in all the years I've known him both as a friend and an alpha, he's never let anything hook him down but you." He shook his head, looking amused. "Regan rarely ate, neither did he sleep, preferring to drink away his sorrows. When he wants to attend meetings, he's either too jittery to stay long, or he cuts the meeting short. All in all, your absence affected him," Earl confided. I pondered. I thought he didn't have feelings for me. What I saw wasn't a man who was missing a friend, but a mate, he notes. I sent him away shortly after, wanting to be left alone with my thoughts. On one hand, I was secretly thrilled that Regan would be affected by me. I was surprised that I could penetrate his defenses. I wondered what it all meant, and after hours of thinking and wondering, I decided to get answers from the man himself, Regan. I walked over to his side of the castle only to be surprised that he wasn't in his room or studying. He was actually on the terrace watching the night sky. "I didn't know that you fancied watching the stars," I said from behind him. He didn't startle, meaning he had known I was there all along. "I don't." He stood up, facing me. His face was wreathed in shadow, only his profile was visible enough. "I was waiting for you." I instantly grew wary, involuntarily taking a step back. "Why?" For an answer, Regan jumped down, closing the distance between us. His scent invaded my senses, making it hard for me to breathe, especially when he gently took my chin in his hand. "Because I wanted to be the last person to see you before you went to bed, to say goodnight." His tone was soft, merely driving the remainder of common sense that I had away. "Goodnight," I breathed, watching his lips with hunger. Gathering up the last shred of control I had, I pulled away and ran as fast as my little legs could take me. Away from the supposed devil himself, I turned to give it to him when I screamed, the keys talking from my hands. It was Regan, looking wild and disheveled. "Regan, what are you doing here?" I asked as calmly as I could while subtly reaching for a kitchen knife. I had no idea what he wanted, but I would be ready if it went south. Regan's eagle eyes picked up on my movements and he pounced. I ran in the opposite direction, but I was no match for him. Regan scooped me up effortlessly, kicking and screaming before dumping me in the car, activating the child lock while he went inside to pack my things. I kept screaming, hoping for help when I remembered that his car was reinforced glass and soundproof. I slumped in the seat, tears stinging my lids. Once again, Regan had succeeded in taking my choice away from me. Chapter 27 Jumbled Thoughts, Athena's POV. I chose to stay away from Regan, giving us both time to come to terms with what happened and the shift or change that had happened. But today, I was feeling a bit lonely, and Regan seemed like the best bet to talk with. So I walked around the house, looking for him. The next place I searched for him was his office. The door wasn't closed, a bit ajar, so I pushed in. To my surprise, Regan wasn't there. To be sure, I called out, "Regan." I stepped inside the office, Regan scent enveloping me. "Are you in here?" No response. Checking the entirety of the office, I indeed confirmed that it was empty. Feeling sad, I was about to leave when I glanced at his table. It was very messy, and there was a half-filled bottle of whiskey on the table. I bit my lip, wondering if I should or not. I didn't have anything to do anyway, and it wasn't like I was checking his private documents. I set to work immediately. I knelt on the carpet so I could help him rearrange his desk and sort out some documents, making it more tidy. Just as I was about to clear the top mess, I found something hard. I removed this hard paperback book, and I read the title, How to Properly Love Your Spouse. I was stunned, immediately dropping it like it was hot coal. But that upset the rest, and I found about 3 more books like that. What is love? How to maintain a relationship? Steps on how to love adequately. I went through each one, stunned at each title. What was Regan doing? Was he learning how to love again and maintain a relationship because of me? I sat on the carpet, holding one of the books in my hand, thinking about it. In the end, I was a bit proud of him for at least attempting, and I set to work, tidying the rest of the place. I was done in record time, and I left, leaving the door half closed, like I had originally met it. I went downstairs, feeling hungry, so I made a snack, buttered toast and hot chocolate. While it was ready, I cradled the mug in my hand, allowing the warmth to seep into my skin while I munched on the toast. The front door opened, and Regan strode in, his face blank. "Hey, I was looking for you." "Were you in my office today?" He interrupted me. He stood less than 2 feet apart, and the suddenly delicious snack I was munching on was stuck in my throat. I studied his face to get any sign of how he was feeling, but his face was still carefully blank, not betraying a hint of his emotions. I stood up slightly, seeking a bit of space. Yeah, just. I was looking for you, so I thought to check in." Regan kept on watching her with his dark, soulless eyes, and I had no clue what he was thinking. "Are you afraid of me?" The question was startling, making me jerk my head up. "Why would you say that?" "You've been uneasy ever since I stepped foot in here," he points out. "I'm not afraid of you," she lied, cringing inwardly at how she sounded. "I wasn't expecting you to." Her words trailed off when Regan took another step, caging her against the counter. My heartbeat skyrocketed, shooting through the roof. I licked my lips, feeling overwhelmed by his proximity. "You say you're not, but your heart is going 1,000 beats per minute." Regan chuckled, his tone amused. "I just think that." My mouth was suddenly dry when Regan's hands held the counter at her side, effectively barricading her in. He leans in to press a kiss on her lips. Due to shock, I kept my lips sealed, and when Regan tried to deepen it, I only kissed him for a couple of seconds before what we were doing sank in, and I turned my face away. Look at me. He tucked his hand under my chin, making me look at him. I was sucked into his intense gaze. Are you afraid of losing control of me? Is that why you don't want to kiss me? The fact that he could read me like an open book, and I can do the same, infuriates me to no end. I didn't say anything, turning away once again. I pushed at his chest, needing air and space. Regan moved back instantly, giving me room to escape, but he called out as I was leaving. I want you to have dinner with me. By 7:30, I'll be waiting. I neither gave him a confirmation nor a denial, busy fleeing into my room. Later that night, around the time I was supposed to have dinner with Regan, I was lost in thought. Going over the events of the day made me worried and hopeful for the future. If Regan was trying to learn, the only thing I could do was to support, right? No, you'll just get hurt again when he snaps. I was torn on what to do, but in the end, I decided that until Regan was sure of what he wanted from me and this relationship, I would rather keep him at arm's length to avoid getting hurt over again. I was so lost thinking that when I rolled over on the bed and I saw the time, I immediately jumped up. Shit, I was late. We were supposed to have dinner by 7:30, but it was already 8:15. I hurriedly dressed up, foregoing having a bath, and tentatively went downstairs. His moods have been erratic recently. One moment calm, and the next a raging inferno, and it sucked to walk on eggshells around your mate. Regan was standing with his back to me, looking out the window with his hands in his pocket. Regan, I called out slowly, and he turned. He had on a black dress shirt and pants. He didn't look angry, but still. I'm sorry I'm late. I kinda lost track of time. To my surprise, he smiled and brought out her chair for her to sit in. It's fine. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical myself if you would join me for dinner considering my behavior the past few weeks. To say I was shocked that he wasn't pissed off was an understatement. The meal was pleasant and we talked about various things, deliberately skipping past the elephant in the room. Chapter 28: A Turnaround. Regan's POV. I watched Athene pick at her food, separating the olives before she took dainty bites. Everything she did was sexy and interesting to watch. I noticed that she shivered, and I remembered I left the windows open. Are you feeling cold? I asked, preparing to stand up. Nah, I'm good, she replied. Even though I saw a little tremor rock her body, I rolled my eyes, wondering why she bothered to lie. She's a terrible liar. I stood up nonetheless to close up the windows, and on my way back, I stopped at the back of her chair. Or do you want a hug to warm you up? I held the back of her chair in my hands, the temptation to lean in and sniff her neck riding me hard. Athena giggled, shaking her head. No, I said I'm fine. The mood hinge shifted from tense to playful, so it was safe for him to lean down, pretending to hug her by force, and she squealed, playfully fighting him off. Despite her blatant refusal, when I wrapped my hands around her shoulders for a couple of seconds to ward off the cold, she leaned into my touch with a sigh. Walking back to my chair, I finished up the rest of my meal, instigating a conversation by dropping questions here and there. Athena opens up to his surprise. Going along with the conversation, I found out that it was amazing to have someone sharing similar interests with you, especially as an alpha. So you're saying you feel relieved not to be the alpha anymore? I asked, taking a sip of my orange juice. Putting it like that makes it sound like I hated being alpha, but on the contrary, I loved it. All I'm just saying is that it feels a whole lot better to be free of the burden that comes with looking over several people, she explained, gesticulating as she spoke. That was wise. But do you love it here? At her confused look, he expanded. My pack. Do you love it here? My heart was beating fast in expectation of her answer, which was silly. I wondered why I was getting worked up over something as simple as that. Athena had a thoughtful expression on her face, thinking about my question. What if I said I don't? I think my heart stopped beating when I heard that. Really? Athena's serious look melted and she laughed, indicating that she was joking. No, silly. I love it here. I didn't when I first came, but it grew on me, you know. The people are warm and friendly and the environment is just as accepting. Glancing at him, she asked, "Were you worried I was going to hate it?" Honestly, yes, I confessed. A soft smile played on her lips. I don't. I called it a night shortly after, even though I wanted to spend the rest of the night with her. Unable to stop myself, I asked for a breakfast session with her tomorrow, which she easily agreed to. As she was about to leave, a cold wind blew past, making Athena shiver. I shrugged off my jacket, placing it over her shoulders. "Here, what about you?" she asked. It was cute that she was concerned about me. "You need it more." I followed her halfway before stopping and placing a kiss on her forehead. "Good night, sleep well." I bade her goodbye and watched her walk until she disappeared. Only then did I head inside. Athena's POV. Setting an alarm to wake up early the next day must be one of the greatest inventions ever, I thought as I bent to lace up my running shoes, grabbing my keys, phone, and headphones. After the dinner last night with Regan, something had changed between us, and it felt like we were moving too fast. Faster than what I could wrap my head around. I still loved him and was attracted to him, but all the other things in between gave me pause, so I decided to go on a run to clear my head before heading down to breakfast with Regan, not sure if it was a date or not. My headphones plugged in. I set out to run past my problems. Minutes in, I hear a noise behind me and I turn back quickly, only to be tackled to the floor. I went into defensive mode immediately, ready to fight, until I caught a glimpse of silver hair. "You startled me. I could have hurt you." I lightly punched him in the chest, and he rolled over with a mock groan. "Sorry, but I couldn't resist," he says with a shit-eating grin. "I didn't realize that you run too," I say as we fall into step, walking at an even pace. "I don't." His eyes search her face. "But I didn't sleep well last night. Thinking about something." "Oh," I say. I didn't bother to ask what, because I had a good suspicion that he was talking about me. By some unspoken rule. We finished the run in silence, not talking to each other, but enjoying the company. When we were done, we separated to shower and change and reconvened for breakfast. It was more pleasant than dinner, with my guard lowered, and we laughed a lot, even engaged in a mini food fight. Unfortunately, Regan was called away, and I was left to spend the rest of the day alone, lounging around and stuffing myself full of food. In the evening, I found another envelope containing an invitation from Regan to hang out on the terrace. My interest was piqued by this new, attentive, and loving side of Regan, so I accepted. I dressed casually yet elegant for the date, only to be blown away by the romantic setting. Candles were lit up, and there were rose petals scattered on the ground. Slow, romantic music was playing from hidden speakers, adding to the mood. Regan dressed casually in a turtleneck sweater and loose gray pants. I blushed so hard when he commented on my dress, wondering what had changed in Regan. He was more open, not as closed off as before, and more willing to talk about himself and his past. I wasn't surprised when he admitted that he had never courted a woman before. Regan dug deeper, wanting to know the tiny details about me, seeming fascinated, and I obliged. It turns out that we share common interests, like loving the color red and the rain. The effort Regan was putting in warmed my heart, and I fell a little bit harder for him. Chapter 29: Acceptance, Athena's POV. What in the heavens possessed me to go on a walk? I asked myself as I walked through the rain, soaked to the bone. I was feeling restless in the house, my thoughts clouding my mind, and I just needed to get out. To leave the confines of my room, of that house. Not less than 30 minutes later, the sky opened its floodgates, letting down torrents of rain. I only wore a tank top and shorts, wanting to feel the evening breeze, which was a bad idea, seeing as it didn't even protect me from the elements. Looking up, I realized that I was on a familiar track. On the way to Regan's cabin, since the mansion was too far away, I decided to crash in here. It was easy to pick the lock, heaving a sigh the moment I was out of that unforgiving rain. Thankfully, my phone wasn't affected by the rain, and when I tapped it on, it revealed texts and missed calls from Regan. They read, "Where are you? Aruns, where are you? I'm getting worried. You're not picking up your calls. Please call me." The last sounded worried, so I immediately shot out a text to Regan, "I'm fine. I just got stuck in the rain." Less than 30 seconds after I delivered the message, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Regan, where are you? Are you hurt?" he demanded. "I told you I'm fine. It's just the rain, nothing else." I started to strip, taking off the wet clothes. "I'm at the cabin. I'm coming over," he says instantly, and I hear movement in the background like he is preparing to leave. "There's no need," I say half-heartedly. "It's not safe out there." He insists, "Besides, I need to tell you something." Before I could ask what, the call dropped. I wandered around the house for what to wear, and in Regan's bedroom, I picked up some of his clothes. Searching for food, I only saw some canned soup and bread, which I decided to heat. Regan came in just when I was about to dish out the food. "You're just in time," I chirp. "For what?" He shrugged off his wet raincoat and toed off his muddy boots, leaving it by the door. "Food?" I pushed the food, setting him in front of him. "Thanks." He lapped up the food hungrily, and I noticed that his hair was wet, the front ends curling up. We ate in silence, after which I remembered what he said on the phone. "What did you have to tell me?" I asked, a bit curious. "So I've been thinking." He paused, dabbing the corner of his lips with the napkin. "I know it's long overdue, but you deserve it. I've decided to host a coronation event, once again reinstating you as an alpha." My jaw dropped, and I took a second to process the news. When it sank in, I squealed happily, jumping on Regan in excitement. I pressed a kiss to his lips and wound my arms around his neck. He laughed, but hugged me tightly. I felt like I was floating on clouds when Regan shooed me away. Insisting on cleaning up while I rested, I changed into something comfy and clicked on the TV to something interesting to watch. 20 minutes later, Regan strolls in, but instead of joining me on the bed, he takes the chair by the entrance. Picking up a book to read, drawn to one another like magnets, my eyes searched for him on the chair only to see him watching me too. I swallowed, burrowing under the sheets. I felt naked, stripped by his gaze. "Need some company," he purred, his voice velvety smooth. Against my better judgment, I nodded, feeling lonely. Regan abandoned the book he was trying to read, doing a poor job of pretending to read when he stole glances at me all the while. I scooted to the side to make room for him, and when his large body sank onto the mattress, it immediately felt smaller. "Is the movie good?" he asked, leaning over me to pick up the remote so he could increase the volume. "Yeah, I guess." I was a bit breathless from his closeness, distracting myself by playing with my hair. Goosebumps had appeared on my arms, which Regan noticed, drawing me closer. I wanted to protest, but I do need his body warmth to warm me up. "Relax. Nothing's going to happen. I promise." He rumbled into my ear, his hot breath tickling my ear. I was trying to relax, but his presence robbed me of my thoughts. My back was to his chest, and he spread his legs wide enough for me to fit in, tucking my head into his neck. From time to time, Regan would rub soothing circles on my hand, muddying the remaining brain cells I had. I stopped focusing on the movie, desiring to be touched and held. I felt the exact moment there was a change in Regan's body. "Athena," he watches me hungrily, looking ready to devour me whole. I moved away from his body, drinking in the sight of him, my gaze zeroing on his deliciously plump lips. I pounced on him, tangling my hands into his silky hair and slanting my lips over his. Regan held his body tightly, giving me control and allowing me to set the pace, which felt nice. But after a couple of minutes of kissing, I wanted more. Touch me, I begged. Regan's hands instantly bracketed me and his control snapped. He flipped us over in one move, pressing me to the soft sheets. He kissed me back, filled with hunger for us. Our movements were wild and frantic, tearing off each other's clothes, needing skin-to-skin contact as if our lives depended on it. I pulled his shirt over his head, flicking my nail over his hard nipple, wrenching a groan from his lips. Regan tears his mouth away from mine so he can look down at me, breathing hard. Are you sure you want this? That was like a bucket of iced water on my head, dampening my mood and making me think clearer. I read hesitation in his eyes. I wanted this, but I had to make sure I wasn't making another mistake. Placing my hands on his hard and firm pecs, I look into his eyes. I do. But do you want this? Us. I communicated what I meant by that, hoping he understood what I meant. I've never wanted this more, Athena, he declares, his voice filled with longing and want. I want you, this, us, however, you want this too. I'm willing to learn and listen to you. He framed my face with his hands, and love shone through his eyes. I'm falling for you, Athena, more than I expected to, and I'm afraid, but with you I'm willing to take that risk. I teared up, not knowing what to say. To that I slammed my lips over his mouth. The kiss started out as sweet, but quickly evolved to something dirty, as Regan kissed, sucked, and ravaged my mouth. He paid similar attention to my breast, tweaking my nipples to the point of pain, blurring the lines between pain and pleasure, driving me out of my mind with lust. Regan crawled down my body, flinging aside the sheets, and set to work on my vagina. He put that filthy mouth to use while I screamed and bucked under his ministrations. Adding his hands to mix, my eyes rolled into the back of my head and I held onto this hair for dear life, riding the wave of the orgasm he conjured. Sitting up with a smile on his face, he kissed and I tasted my musk on his lips. That turned me on, and I widened my legs for Regan to settle in while he shoved off his pants. In one move, he thrust in, wrenching a loud moan at the sensation. He played with my clit, stimulating me even further. I climaxed, my walls closing around him, and he followed not too long faster, filling me with his seed, rolling to his side to not crush. He pulled me over to rest on his chest, happy and sated. He fell into my arms, and together we drifted off. Chapter 30, A New Beginning, Athena's POV. Waking up hours to a pleasant soreness between her legs, I woke up with a stretch only to see Regan watching her with a soft look in his eyes. He looked too good not to kiss, so I reached to pull his head down, planting a soft kiss. What was that for? Regan smiled against my lips. I pulled back, running my finger over his slightly swollen lip. Saying thank you, he rolled me to my back, covering me with his body. You never need to. He kissed me this time, but it was so intense, it robbed me of my breath. He let up, giving me space. I've been reading books, and I now realize that I treated you wrongly in the beginning. Funny enough, I thought I was even being considerate. I love the fact that you're trying. That's enough for me. I reached up to kiss his chin, running patterns on his skin, but I am scared. Regan instantly went on alert. Why? A part of me loves this new part of you, but the other keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Feeling that this is nothing but temporary, I admit, pouring my feelings. Regan looked hurt, but a form of understanding crept into his eyes. I understand, and that's entirely my fault, which I promise to spend the rest of my life working on proving just how much I love you. This was the first time he said those exact words to her, and it drew tears from her eyes. Regan noticed, growing concerned. What's wrong? What if I'm not enough? I cried out. Look at you. You're a big, powerful alpha, and I'm just me. What if I'm not enough? I say, spilling my insecurities. Regan grips my chin roughly, forcing me to look at him. Never say that about yourself. If anything, I should be the one feeling inadequate. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? You're an angel with a beautiful soul despite all the crap life has thrown your way. I should not desire your love, Mia Bella. Kissing the back of her hands, he declares. No matter what, today I promise to stand by you, protect and love in front of anyone. I'll protect your status and alpha, making sure that you're respected as alpha. I feel relieved upon hearing those words, the nervous weight taken off my chest. Thank you. Feeling overcome with love, I urged him onto his back and rode the hell out of him, giving him the best orgasm he could ask for. I wanted to laze around and have more sex, but Regan admits that they had to head back, since the preparation for the coronation was underway. Pleasantly surprised, they left only to be welcomed back with cheers the moment they were spotted. Regan looks at her and kisses her in front of everyone, much to their delight. Shortly after, they're whisked away by different people. I was taken by those women who promised I was going to be pampered and taken care of. They kept true to their word, not allowing me to lift a finger, even going as far as getting someone to feed me when my stomach rumbled for food. Regan had thought ahead, ordering the dress I was going to wear, and I was captivated by its beauty when it was unwrapped. It was a floor-length white gown with a beaded bodice and a low back, merely skimming the tops of my cheeks. He gifted me a jewelry set too, and I was excited to see the ruby earrings and necklace he sent over. They were precious stones, I was told, which were worth several thousands, if not millions of dollars, due to how busy the dress was. My hair was swept atop my head, leaving only tendrils to frame my face. My shoes were silver to complement the dress, and that was then. The ceremony was about to start, and there was a flurry of activity to get me there on time. During the car ride, I was nervous, my stomach twisting with dozens of butterflies. I questioned everything I knew. Was I making the right decision? Was I being too hasty? I hope I won't regret this. Too late for me to back out. The car arrived at the main hall used by the twins for major events, such as gatherings, etc. As soon as the double doors opened, the murmuring stopped and my chest heated when I realized everyone was looking at me. Finding Regan standing proudly at the other end with the council of elders surrounding him, I drew strength from his face and walked confidently with my head held high and my back straight. I didn't see Candace anywhere, but I never expected her to come. You look breathtaking. Regan held her hand, kissing their intertwined fingers. I blushed. So do you, I say. And it was true. Regan looks good in anything he wears, having the confidence to pull them off, but there was something about him in a tux. It made me want to jump him and have my wicked way with him. Down, girl. Can we start? Elder Jackson, or so he was called some, drew them out of their bubble. Yes, please, Regan replied, staring at me like I hung the moon. Sensing the ceremony was about to start, the hell quieted, eager to watch the ceremony play out. They were directed to face the audience, but had eyes for only one another. We are gathered here today to witness our alpha rightfully claim his mate before the goddess and his pack. Elder Jackson boomed, his voice bouncing around the walls of the hall. By the power vested in me by the saints, I put it to you. He turned to Regan. Do you take Athena Ferris as your mate, to love, cherish, and protect with your life? Regan smiled even wider, looming pleased at the thought of being hers. Yes, I do. I promised to uphold all that you believe in, making the toy a force to reckon with, giving the toy the space to fly, which ink is you. I promise to love you, now and always, he vowed. His vows were so touching and heartfelt that a couple of tears escaped. Elder Jackson, satisfied with Regan's words, faced me and repeated the same thing. I started to nod even before the words were out of his mouth. From the first moment I saw you, Regan Bloom, I knew you were going to barge into my life with a warning, leaving wreckage behind. But from that wreckage, it gave birth to the beautiful love that we had today. And I had to go through it again. I'll gladly do it with you. I promise to love and cherish you too, now and always. My words by his sealed the deal, and I saw Regan wiping a few tears. The knife was handed and Regzin went first, slicing open his palm. Blood beaded on his palm, and he gave me to drink. I repeated the process and gave him to drink, binding our souls for eternity. I love you, Athena Ferris, Regan tells while the crowd erupts in cheers. I love you even more, Regan Bloom. In our bubble, we kissed, choosing to walk on this path together. And hopefully, forever. An internal server error occurred.